Okay, so you might have heard about this game. It's a small little game called Elden Ring, developed by this small little company called From Software. Kind of blew up recently in the past couple months. You probably have seen it. So I'm going to be upfront with this review, and I'm going to tell you that I have not actually beaten another From Software game. Boo! I have played Sekiro and Bloodborne. The first Dark Souls, I just wasn't able to beat them because I got too frustrated. I was just a young man then, a few years ago. I know I can hear the get good comments, and I know the whole. I get it, I understand, but at least for me, I kind of play games to try to relax and have some fun with some challenge, right? But those games, not impossible, right? But those games require a lot more time and dedication that I just don't really have these days. Much more these days, actually, because I'm just old. I go to work and I come back. I got barely enough time it is, anyways. But I want you to know that, of course, that doesn't mean I think those are bad games, because I recognize what good games are that are just not made for me. You know what I mean? I think I had that same feeling. Deus Ex, Human Revolution. Yeah, I tried to play that. Wasn't for me, but even that I was in high school maybe, and I was like, this is a good game that I cannot play, right? Right. So as of me writing this review, I have about 150 hours total. I beat it twice. I just the footage you're seeing is from my Shield playthrough, just a Shield only playthrough. So that kind of tells me something went right, at least for me. And it's not like I'm a be all kind of end all game reviewer, right? I personally have had a good time playing this game, and I will make that more clear of exactly how someone who has not beaten another From Software game really did enjoy playing through Elden Ring. And there's little things here and there small little changes that have made such a big impact across the entire game itself. That said, Elden Ring reminds me a little more of Monster Hunter than it does Breath of the Wild. And I know there's a lot of comparisons to Breath of the Wild, but I understand that those comparisons are more like what the evolution of open world games, are leaning towards and what they can be, as opposed to this is a point I'll get to later on. But regardless, Monster Hunter, I feel like kind of prepared me more for Elden Ring. So if I were to say Monster Hunter is kind of like your training for Elden Ring. So yeah, all that said, I will say that Elden Ring is definitely one of the best games I've played, ever, and especially in the last few years. But that doesn't mean I think there will be still some people who will be put off by it. So Elden Ring does take steps to remedy that, the issue of the difficulty gate that a lot of the other From Software games are really known for. I think one of the biggest changes in this aspect that really helps people, actually be able to get somewhere in the game. Even if you don't beat it, if you put 40 hours into it, I would say you're still probably having a good time. The biggest change, I think, is the summons, or the spirit ashes. And you can it's also, from what I understand, easier to summon in co-op friends. Although I believe if you have co-op friends on, other people can invade your world. But regardless, you can have friends to help you out. It's easier. You could do that in other From Software games, but I'm not aware of the process. I apologize. From what I understand, it's easier in Elden Ring. So specifically, the summons, the Spirit Ashes, if you want to play alone, I don't think I played with any friends. Rip, sad boy. The summons really, really help you out, right? Even in the late and end games and new game pluses, they will help you out, because even if let's say you're New Game Plus, right? New Game Plus times 3, whatever. They still just take the heat off of you for just a quick second. Your summon could be up in their boss's face, or you could be fucked off healing somewhere, right? They take the heat off of you just for a quick second, so you can restore your health or your magic, or and I think that can really, really make a big difference. And also, they're optional. You don't have to use them. So if you don't want to use them, you just don't. You have to very deliberately use the spirit summons, and there's a whole discourse of easy mode and blah blah blah, and I will talk about that very briefly, because that's just probably its whole own thing, and people have done it all already. So now there are definitely times where the game feels a little unbalanced in terms of enemy animations and damage scaling, but also at the same time You know, to be fair, a lot of how the game plays out and how the fights go will kind of depend on how you spec out your character. So personally, I realized on my first playthrough, I was just kind of like figuring out the game, right? I was kind of half exploring, half using Google to figure stuff out. Personally, I like realized I spread my guy like a little too thin, so like my stats were kind of like all over the place, and I like feel like I made the game harder on myself. I also did not realize how many materials I would need to upgrade some of the weapons to a good point, like to keep me actually like alive and like do a good amount of damage. Yeah, I like upgraded one of my swords like 2-3 times. I was like, oh, it's probably good now. No. So I think it's kind of ironic, right? So this game is huge, right? I put 150 hours. You know, I know people who've done 200, 300 plus hours already, right? The game is huge, but this review won't be too long, you know, I think, because what I think makes Elden Ring so good are not like little things that be nitpicked, you know, oh, the graphics are really, really good, but the gameplay is okay. No. It's not like a few good aspects or anything. Instead, what I think make it good are these basic gameplay fundamentals that carry this game all the way to the end and much further beyond. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so what I mean is that the gameplay mechanics, the RPG elements, and the overall gameplay loop are what make this game so addictive and fun to play. You know, I can't look at a small portion of the game because, you know, that small portion will translate to the whole game, right? A boss is giving you problems. Okay, well, the only really, you know, real thing you can do is level up a bit, upgrade your weapons. You're probably going to die a lot, and you just have to try again. That is the story for every single boss, almost, you know, every single enemy type. But the combat is fun and feels great in this game, and there are hella weapons to choose from, so that loop of dying and learning isn't that horrible of a chore as it sounds like. The combat can be difficult, right? But it's definitely more approachable this time around. Again, especially with summons helping you out. I think I also personally felt more okay about dying because there are some good spots to farm runes in order to level up. It's the money. You buy stuff and you also level up with the runes. So there's a good place to farm. There's a few places to farm runes if you die and you're like, oh shit, I lost him. But you know, the combat is like very, very satisfying, and you know, it's like a good rhythm like when you're in the zone. But like I said before, there are still some times where like the enemy animations are like, well, what the hell is that, right? And you know, they'll hopefully won't one-shot. I mean, you could get one-shotted a lot, I'm sure. But again, that will kind of depend, right? And that leads me into the next thing. The other part that goes in hand with the combat will be the way you spec your character. So you may have just seen me pull up my like level up list. I'll just put it on the screen again. These are all the points you can choose from. There's a lot of like stats to choose to put what you want to put points in. So it can be a little overwhelming at first. And even, I mean, honestly, what did I say? 150 some hours. Like, I'm still kind of lost on like what I really like should put points into. So yeah, I suggest kind of looking online for builds and guides that'll help you like decide what you want to put points towards. Like, you know, say you want to swing the big ass weapons around, right? You'll probably need to put points into strength and health. But there's also things like dexterity. You know, some weapons like, oh, I have 50 strength, and like, oh fuck, I can't use this weapon because I don't have enough dex, right? And you know, if you want to do magic, you actually have a few ways to do magic in this game. There's like intelligence, faith, and arcane skills. So from what I understand, Elden Ring has made magic more viable compared to older From Software games. But again, even in that aspect, your ability to effectively use magic will depend on how you build your character and what pieces of armor, weapons, and spells you equip. So, you know, using magic can give you different buffs and also let you keep your distance from the enemy. So I think it's good that From Software have like decided to expand on magic, because if you're fuck all far away from the enemy, they can't you. The spells go pretty far. And you can also go old school and just melee the shit out of things by putting a bunch of points into strength, you know, and giving yourself a bunch of health, and then swinging the big ass weapons around. That's kind of how my shield playthrough went through. Excuse me. Yeah, I just have a bunch of strength points, and I have the big ass shields, and I just kind of hit stuff. Now, I want to say you can experiment with different builds, but that will also kind of depend on your starting class, because you'll have like X amount of points already in a few attributes over others. A lot of weapons you'll find will also require skill points and something you probably don't have. But honestly, that only made me want to do like more playthroughs just to see how I could play through the game again a different way. So, and there is a way to respec your characters, or respec your points. But I found that doing that, just to use a specific weapon, only made me want to respec again to use another weapon or spell that requires different skill points. And at that point, I was just thinking, might as well just, start another character. I'm halfway through the second playthrough. I'm like, okay, on the third playthrough, I'm gonna do this. And I think that may be the biggest downside of this game, is that there are so many options, right? But you can't experience them on one playthrough. Of course, that's not actually a problem, because you'll just play another playthrough. It's just more unfortunate than anything. The other big aspect, the other big selling point for Elden Ring, and it's heavily featured, is the open world exploration. The world is indeed very big, with little hidden dungeons and more than a few moments of feeling awestruck, just looking at the skybox or out over a vista of mountains or whatever, big ass field. And I think at first I thought maybe that's why it's getting compared to Breath of the Wild, and there are definitely similarities in that sort of aspect. I feel like I've said aspect a million times already, right? Yeah, I feel like, people compare, Link walks up to the cliff and it pans out over the thing. You can do that in Elden Ring. You walk over to a cliff, but then something will hit you, you get knocked off of it. That's a big difference, right? I would say Breath of the Wild leans a lot more on the feeling of discovery and exploration, where Elden Ring leans more on the challenge of the fights and its RPG elements. But like I said, there are still definitely moments in Elden Ring, where you just kind of stop and you go, well, this looks fucking beautiful, right? And then you just get bodied by everything that you see. Now, believe it or not, there is actually some amount of platforming in Elden Ring that's done here, and it's kind of janky, but it's not something you have to do very often, so don't worry about it. I guess the comparison to Breath of the Wild, like I said before, is more of the evolution of what an open world game can be and what they may be going towards in the future, stuff like that. But yeah, like I said before, also, it feels like a lot more like Monster Hunter, because similar to Monster Hunter, you're like, oh, I want to use this weapon. And then eventually you want to go, okay, I want to use another weapon, right? Because it's the combat, right? That's where the meat of the game is. If anything, now I want just an open world Monster Hunter game, right? You'll have to memorize specific dodge or specific animations. You dodge at the right time and you make sure your gear is good. For those like me who have played, I think of Monster Hunter, like Monster Hunter World, I put 100 plus hours, and then I played Monster Hunter Rise, something like 80 plus hours or something like that. So again, something went right, if you ask me. For those coming from Monster Hunter games and who played those a lot more, maybe not played From Software games, I'd say there's about 30 to 50% more bullshit in these boss fights compared to Monster Hunter fights. And again, it's not that I'm saying that exploration is not a thing of Elden Ring. I think the meat of the game is in the combat, and exploration is still very, very big, yes. But, what you'll probably remember more, I think, are the boss fights and the, weapons you find and some of the harder fights that you've been through. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, you remember more of, the plateau you start out on, and then looking out over the field, and then scaling the mountain, stuff like that. I hope that makes sense, because again, I don't think, also that's not to say Breath of the Wild combat is bad, right? I just think if there was going to be a takeaway from Elden Ring, it is going to be the RPG elements and the gameplay. So I hope that kind of makes sense from where I'm coming from. Okay, the story. I'm going to be honest. I'm not entirely sure what the story was, kind of just for me playing. I mean, I understand there's the ring, there's the people, there's the Scarlet Rot, there's the war, there was the war, Maidenless, stuff like that. A lot of the lore I mostly read online and through the games and wiki, through the games wiki or Twitter threads. The story's not bad, Mr. George R.R. Martin, but there's just there's so many similarly named characters and family trees that I couldn't keep track of. I think I saw a meme. I'm going to put it on the screen. I found it on Twitter. I'll put it here so you can see it, but this is what I'm talking about. It's not bad, right? The story's cool and stuff. I personally got lost. So I apologize if that's something you wanted out of this review. Basically, your goal is to become the Elden Lord by killing bosses. There you go. That's the story. George, if you're listening, I can finish up Game of Thrones there for you. It's not going to end up like Season 8. I promise. So, like I said, I find it ironic that there is so much to talk about for Elden Ring, but also not a lot at the same time. Okay, you saw the thumbnail. It is not clickbait. It's kind of clickbait, but not really, because I have an analogy. Have you ever watched Binging with Babish? I think they've changed it to Babish Culinary Universe. If you have not, it's a cooking YouTube channel where this guy makes iconic food from movies and TV shows and other media, and I highly recommend you watch him because it's entertaining and you might learn a thing or two about cooking. You might learn, some new foods you might like. So there is an episode where he makes, I can't remember what show it's from, but he makes brie, butter, and baguettes and puts it together as a sandwich. And your first thought is probably, but that's not really a sandwich. It's just cheese and butter and bread. How good could it taste? And you'd be right, right? That is exactly what it is. It's just the super basic ingredients. But at the end, he makes a point of this video and in another of his videos that if your base ingredients are of that high quality, then the end product will be great no matter what it is you made. Elden Ring is exactly that. Its base ingredients are just that high of a quality that, yeah, maybe it looks like open world Dark Souls game, but the ingredients have been refined and made even better than before, resulting in this final product that is, absolutely amazing. Elden Ring is like really good bread. You see? That's it. That's the review. You can go home now. No, but I'm being serious, right? Have you ever had like good bread versus just like a loaf of like packaged bread that you can buy from Walmart? Like when that bread is like made with like okay or crap ingredients, like you can tell. But when you go to that fancy ass restaurant with they got the fucking white tablecloth on the tables and those waiters have vests, they don't even have a name tag on. I mean, that bread's gonna be good, right? Also, don't get me wrong, I eat the Walmart bread all the time. And that's why I can tell from experience, and I could say that when that bread is good, or what you could tell when that bread is made with good ingredients versus when you buy the Walmart bread, right? So, if the one thing you get from this review, I hope it's this. Elden Ring is a fantastic game that relies on the great core gameplay mechanics that From Software have refined for this game after learning what did and did not work in their previous games. The gameplay is engaging, the combat is weighty and satisfying, and the game can be as challenging as you make it. Don't screw yourself and think there's only a few upgrades for your weapons, because you gotta upgrade some of them bitches a lot to have a chance. I'm pretty sure, so the smithing shit, right? Some weapons and the shields go up to like plus 25. So yeah, don't screw yourself. I was like, I'm at plus 8. I'm Gucci. I'm good. No. You are not good if you're at plus 8. You need to go to plus fucking 25, okay? Believe me. But also remember, so there's like small changes I said, right? You can farm runes. You can cheese some of the bosses to like even the playing field, right? You can also just run past a lot of enemies if you like. So let's say you are in a little dungeon thing and you kind of get halfway and you see the boss door, you die, okay? You can just run. You can just run to the boss door once you come back to life because you don't have to fight everybody, right? A small thing, I'm not sure I mentioned it before, but when you die, your runes drop on the ground. So you can run by, pick them up, keep running. In older From Software games, you would have to kill, when whoever killed you, whatever enemy killed you, you have to get the runes back, or money, souls, whatever, back from them. And you have to kill them to get it back. So, small change that goes a very, very long, long way. If you've been wanting to get into Dark Souls style games, but felt like there was a bigger barrier to entry, I can firmly say that Elden Ring has brought down that barrier to a point where many, many more people are going to be able to enjoy it at their own pace. And if you've liked what you've seen from this review and others, then I think it's more than worth giving a shot. But hey, that's my review of the game. I really hope you liked it. What did you think about Elden Ring? Have you beaten any of the other From Software games? Have you played a lot of Monster Hunter? I think Monster Hunter is what really prepped me for one, like, fighting the big ass monsters, because there's dragons in Elden Ring, and there's big ass dragons in Monster Hunter. Um, do you like bread? Have you had good bread? Do you understand that analogy? Um, yeah, I purposely skipped over the topic of the gatekeeping, like, easy mode thing, because it's been done to death already, and I think it would be something that needs to be approached and talked about in a separate format, like in another video or something. Yeah, I still think, though, that Elden Ring has lowered that barrier entry a lot, and I hope you guys really get a chance to play the game and enjoy it as much as I did. Thanks for watching.